Thanks, Tanya, for inviting me to talk. I'm going to change the tone here slightly and talk about the Global Biodata Coalition, which is an effort by funders to understand how they can provide resources or funding more sustainably for biodata resources. So there is some hope that not all resources will end up being cast into the wilderness. So as we know, biodata resources are crucial distributed global infrastructure, I should say, as you may probably know. And I don't have a slide explaining what biodata resources are, but they are all of the different ways that people provide biological data to users. And you can ask me questions about what's included or not, but there are thousands of these resources. So there's a healthy ecosystem of these resources, and by healthy, I mean there are a lot of them. It doesn't mean the funding is necessarily healthy. They're essential, and everyone is using them, both commercial and academic users. They're also used in medicine in the clinic. And they're highly distributed. They're funded everywhere, and they're located everywhere. Although, as you can imagine, there's a bias towards places that have more money for research. There are challenges to the infrastructure, as we've just heard from a number of individual resources. There's a lot more data being generated. Open access policies from funders and also universities and journals increase demand for the resources. New technologies require new data, and funding has tended to be short-term and distributed unsystematically. We've just heard about short-term grants from funders that are eventually cut off, and this is a well-known problem. And in fact, one of the reasons GBC was started. So there's not very much coordination among funders of resources globally to at least maximize the efficiency of the money that is spent. And even though it is a research infrastructure globally, as I said, it's very distributed, so it's not managed as an infrastructure. And there are a lot of some data to back this up. If you look at the diagram on the right, we did a paper describing Elixir core data resources in 2018. And as a group of resources, the number of FTEs they had funded was about 300, 320. And if you see starting at 2019, that is a snapshot. We asked them in 2018, how much money do you have left? If you didn't get any more money to spend, what would happen to the funding for your employees? And you can see that most of them were funded on various short-term funding schemes. And as that funding ended, the amount of money they had to support their employees was dropping off. So that by 2024, most of them had gone way down to about a sixth of their original funding. Now we know that resources don't, in general, just die off like that. What happens is that the managers spend a lot of time trying to get more money, but that's also a problem because it's not money. It's money that's not spent on supporting researchers and supporting the data. It's just an administrative burden. So these challenges are well known to funders. The GBC started with a paper published in 2015 by three luminaries at the NIH, who are two of them are still involved in GBC, who said that explained the problem, the challenge of funding, and said that there should be a coalition of funders to discuss these problems and at least try to organize spending more systematically around the world. So we have a historical timeline here. Now, clearly, the challenge of funding resources goes back way prior to 2015. This is just a timeline of the GBC. So we had this nature perspective I just showed. We had a series of meetings over a few years, established a steering group. Crucially, we got seed funding from NIH, NSF, Wellcome, and A-STAR, which is a funding agency in Singapore. And that enabled us to start having funding meetings, funding a few staff. We launched a secretariat with a website logo, and we got agreement from other funders to formally join. They joined and began contributing more money, membership fees. And we really got going last year with the scientific advisory committee. We will shortly have an executive director. And we've initiated a work program, including global core biodata resources selection, which I will talk about the work program and GCBR selection momentarily. What I'm not going to talk about is our administrative efforts to attract more funders to join and to attract funders from other parts of the world. I'll show you the membership momentarily. And you'll see that it's somewhat biased to Europe and North America. Our core missions are to enable the funders of biodata resources to coordinate and manage funding infrastructure, and to ensure sustained support for that infrastructure, with an emphasis now on selecting global core biodata resources, which again I'll talk about. Now, we're a funder supported and owned organization. So our money comes from membership fees, which are very small, paid by the funders, and those only support our secretariat. They're not to support resources. They're only to support the coalition and our collaborative efforts to bring funders together. So here's the list of the current full members that we have, and we're grateful to all of them for providing support. Most of them have been involved for quite some time. We've had some more recently, Chan Zuckerberg and Genome Canada joined just last year. And we also have funders who are observers, and observers have not signed the letter of understanding, and they're not yet paying membership fees. Membership contributions, but we hope that they will be able to convert in the future. Most of them would like to, but it can be challenging for funders to support a nonprofit like GBC, which is not really a research grant. So some of them are legally constrained in how they can support, whether they can support organizations that are not located in their home country, etc. But there is quite a bit of interest from observers, and there's another tier of funders who know about us and are interested, but have not yet become observers. So we are working to expand the organization. So what are we actually doing? At the moment, we have 3 activities ongoing. The first category of activities is knowledge exchange. And we have funders working groups to discuss issues, and I'll talk about those in a minute. And then we have 2 more scientifically oriented activities, which are to describe the infrastructure of biodata. Now, I alluded at the beginning to the thousands of resources that make up this infrastructure, but it is not well defined. No one has ever really tried to count it before, to define it or to identify what it is. The way to think about the infrastructure is, and I don't have a diagram of this, but it's a network of data resources which store data. Scientists can deposit research data in them, but there are also other resources which provide value-added curation or tools or other ways of analyzing data that are deposited in those repositories. Collectively, they are the infrastructure, and they are joined together in a large network. So if you think about that network, some of them are more connected than others. For instance, the data resources that contain nucleotide sequence information are very well connected. Many resources gather information from those nucleotide sequence data resources, and the nucleotide sequence data resources also take in information from many other resources. So the two projects we're doing are an inventory and global core biodata resources, and I'll talk about those in a moment. So the board working groups. Now, the first mission of the GBC is to encourage the funders to exchange knowledge. This is the beginning of that effort. We have convened 2 working groups of funders representatives to discuss open data strategies and biodata resource sustainability. All of them have strategies for open data and encouraging the open deposition of data, and all of them are concerned with sustainability of data resources. But not all of them have talked to other funders about what they're doing, and not all of them have exchanged ideas or told anyone else what their policies are. So our job or goal with these working groups is to start that process. It will be an ongoing thing. We're not going to come to any solution here, but we really want to get the funders to understand what they're doing amongst themselves. And indeed, that's what they started the GBC to do. They as I said, one of our goals is to do this on behalf of the funders. So the key, we had one meeting of each of these working groups. So we really don't have any results, but the key messages are, and of interest to this group, are that the funders are very aware of the importance of biodata resources. They're very aware of the challenges of funding those resources. They don't like cutting off funding to good existing resources, and we hope to find some way to mitigate or avoid reducing funding to the infrastructure. But as I said, there's no solutions yet. Global inventory. We want to create a comprehensive inventory of data resources. That is to count how many there are. The methodology is to use basically data mining of Europe PMC. I'm happy to go into more detail of this in the questions, but for now I'll say that this is just starting. We have 2 consultants working on it. We should have a full data set by the end of the summer and a publication out by the end of the year. So more in the future on this. Global core biodata resources are, as we define them, are resources that are of fundamental importance to the entire community. They provide complete collections of generic value. They are free and open access. They're used extensively. They're mature and comprehensive. They are authoritative. They are high scientific quality, and they provide a professional standard of service delivery. In the interest of time, I won't talk more about this, about the qualities of core biodata resources, but I will say that we have just opened the selection process for GCBRs. So if any of you on the webinar now have a data resource, you might look at our website and try to understand if your resource might be selectable as a core biodata resource. If you look at the website there and this paper down here, link to descriptions of what the selection process is and what the criteria are for selection. And I don't have time to describe them here, but there are a series of criteria. The first stage of the process is an expression of interest, which is a very short series of yes or no questions and 5 or 6 very short answer questions. And those will be reviewed by a panel, and the ones that pass will be invited to submit full applications. So we've tried to design this so that the first step is fairly low effort for resources, and that the full application will require more time to complete, but only resources that we think really have a good chance of being selected would be invited to provide a full application. So that's been a very short overview of the GBC, and I hope that we get some questions on this, because I realize I've skipped over a lot of things. You can go to our website, and we have an email address there, info@globalbiodata.org, also linked on the website. If you have more questions later.